Why don't we just start with what happened?
Okay. Uh, First of all, I'm a teacher at Franklin Upper School. I teach ninth grade English. On Friday, October 8th, I was in my classroom finishing up my lunch. I was getting ready for my next class, kind of getting, my materials ready. I was getting my check-in up on my screen for my next class coming in. And one of my students from an earlier class came like barreling, running into my room. He ran in my room and he ran and hid behind my co-teacher's desk, which is in the back of the classroom. And seconds after he ran in, another student who I didn't know, I had never seen before, came chasing after him, jumped on top of him, and just started punching him. And instinctively, I did what I would want any other adult to do for, my child in that situation. I went over and I intervened. And I pulled that student off of my student, and I did, whatever I could do to stop the fight from continuing. I used my teacher voice and told the student, to leave my room. I told the student, not to put their hands on my student, and I walked the student out of my classroom. Once we get out in the hallway, I looked for security and there wasn't anyone. There was no security, there were no administrators. So my classroom is at the end of the hallway. There's only one way to go. You can only go left. And I turned to go left to go look for security. I didn't know if my student was hurt in my classroom. I had 3 other students that were up in my room having lunch with me. I didn't know if in the chaos, because other students had run into my room, I didn't know if any of them were hurt. So my only thought was, I need to go and get help. So I turned left and I started walking down the hall to get help. And I got about 5 steps, and the student who had come into my room and assaulted my student turned around and shoved me and spit in my face and started swearing at me. Another teacher from down the hall at that point came up and tried to intervene and get in between us. And the student shoved him and took a swing at him. And at this point, a large crowd of students, dozens of students, had kind of encircled the area. And again, my only thought was, I just need to go and get help. I need to find security. I need to find an administrator. So I just kept going down the hall, going the only way that I knew I could find someone of authority. So I continued down the hall. And I got maybe about, 10 feet further down the hall, and the student turned around again and shoved me up by my shoulders and spit in my face and was swearing at me again. And, I just continued. And it happened a third time. The student turned around, stopped going forward and turned around because I was trying to stay back, and shoved me and would spit at my face and scream at me. The fourth time, though, we got, about another 10 steps down. The fourth time, the student turned around, and instead of just shoving me, the student turned around and grabbed my breasts and fondled my breast for about 30 seconds before the student shoved me and spit in my face. And I said to the student, "Don't touch my breasts." And at this point, what was like a dozen, maybe a couple dozen students that were around us had now built up to probably like 100 students around us. and cell phones are out, and they're all recording all of this happening on their cell phones. And again, my only thought is, I need someone. I need help. I need an SSO. I need security. I need an administrator. I need help. So I continue down the hallway, and the student turns around again, and this time grabs my breasts and fondles my breasts from anywhere between a minute to a minute and a half. And I attempted to lift my arms up and push the student's hands off my breast, but there were so many students around us at that point and videotaping that I couldn't even get my hands up. I couldn't even get my arms away from me because there were so many students crowded on us. And I just yelled. I just yelled for the student to get their hands off of my breasts. And the student's response was to spit in my face again. And then the student shoved me again. When we finally turned the corner to go down the next hallway, an SSO, one of our security officers, did arrive. And I explained that the student had placed their hands on me and needed to be brought to the principal's office. The sentry could clearly see that the student was agitated. There were large numbers of students around us. You know, their cell phones are out, they're videotaping. The student is agitated and screaming. And because the student, was loud walking, the student came around the sentry and was able to get to me and punched me twice on the right side of my head. And at that point, an all-out brawl happened in the hallway. And there was about maybe 5 or 6 students just fighting in the hallway, while the rest of the students were just videotaping everything that was happening. Luckily, there was another teacher in the hallway that was able to get in between me and the student. So I was kind of pushed back against the locker and protected. And the teacher was able to get me into the main office because I just froze in that situation. I didn't even know what to do. I was shocked and I couldn't move. I was just there. Once it was all over, I called 911 from the school. I called them at 12:20 and reported what had happened and asked for an officer to be sent to the school. I called again at 12:50. At about 3 o'clock, I decided to go over to the public safety building. I thought maybe I could do a report there because no one had shown up to Franklin. When I got there, the officer on duty there suggested that I call 911 again and asked to speak with a sergeant at the Clinton section. So I did that at about 3:15-ish and waited another hour and a half. Then the sergeant on duty suggested I call 911 again, and this time asked to speak with a lieutenant in the Clinton section. Finally, around 6 o'clock that night, still waiting at the public safety building, I had a call back from an officer that said that they were on their way to take the report. They did come, they took the report. I pressed charges for forcible touching, which is a Class A misdemeanor. The police officers were very apologetic that it took them so long to get there. They did say, well, you guys did remove the SROs from the school. So, but it's been 14 days and I haven't been able to get my police report. Every time I go down to the public safety building, they tell me it's not in the system. So I've called and I've talked to a sergeant at the Clinton precinct who says that the police report is lost somewhere in the Ethernet. And I don't know, it can't be found. I can't, I tried again this past Wednesday to get it. And the woman at the public safety building put a message through to the Clinton precinct to have the sergeant there call me. They said it was urgent. I still haven't heard back, and it's Thursday night. To make matters worse, I found out Wednesday that despite all the attempts of my building administration to prove what a horrific assault this was, the district officials have overturned the long-term suspension on this student. So she'll be back in the building for classes. So that's where I'm at this point.
So just a couple quick questions and then I'll let you go. First, we've heard about the conditions within, especially the high schools, from the union leaders. Do you think that what you experience is representative of those conditions?
I think that many of the high schools are experiencing very similar conditions to what we are experiencing at Franklin, yes.
Do you think there should be SROs, school resource officers, police officers in the schools?
I think that what is happening right now is not working. They have taken away school resource officers. And when they did that, they came up with this grand plan of all these extra resources. We were going to have social workers. We were going to have restorative training for everyone. We were going to have all these extra community resources. And they didn't give us any of those. They took away the school resource officers and they replaced them with nothing. So you can't have it both ways. You can't take A away without replacing it with something else. In another sense, we're not just talking about one thing that solves this problem. The four unions came together and it gave, a very detailed ask. Everyone at the building level is united on this. From the principal to the paras, the custodians to the teachers, we're all in the same boat here. For some reason, the top level is just not getting this. It's not just about the SROs. It's, we need a multitude of resources. It's not just, one thing that's going to make or break this. We need everything. We need the whole kit and caboodle at this point.
When you approached the police officer at the station and that person said to you, well, you kicked SROs out of the school, did you read that as them saying we were delayed in our response because of that removal?
Absolutely. Unequivocally.
What do you think about that?
I feel let down. I feel let down that someone who's oath bound to protect citizens would do that. I feel like, that's their job. Their job is to protect, serve and protect, no matter what.
Yeah.
Teachers didn't make this decision. The students didn't make this decision. We don't make policy. We don't. And to punish us for a board decision, for a superintendent's decision, it's misguided. Don't show up 131 West Broad. Come to the high schools when we need you. Come to the elementary schools when we need you, when someone calls for help.
Last question for you. How are you doing tonight?
I am overwhelmed by the support I've been given. I'm hurt. I'm hurt. I'm broken. It's hard. It's hard to reconcile getting up and going to a job you love every day and then having to fight for basic needs for your students. It's hard. We have the district has, for some reason, decided that the pandemic has not happened for our kids. They have sent us back to school this year under the assumption that it is March of 2020. They refuse to recognize the trauma that our students have been through during this pandemic. They think it's business as usual, and they won't listen to the teachers and the staff and the principals that are at the building level that it's not the case. They won't hear it, and I don't understand why. And they're doing a grave disservice to their students.
Corinne, I can't thank you enough for talking to me this evening, and we wish you the best.
Thank you.